Welcome again to another edition of the Sports Wrap with Michael Kravetz. Today's show, primarily going to be focusing on the Steelers and the Pirates. Tonight, well actually I should say this past Sunday, the first of preseason action started with the Arizona Cardinals and the New Orleans Saints. Now, I'm not a huge fan of preseason football, but when it comes to the Steelers, of course I'm going to be paying attention. But I do like to see the battles and stuff for the players that are going to end up trying to make the team. And, you know, there's always those standout players that you don't really know much about coming into the preseason, and they end up having a good stretch of games, and they end up making the team, and you wonder, is this kind of player going to make an impact in the season? So, what I'm most excited for tonight, there's 6 games on slate. The first game I'm really excited about. I know I won't be able to watch the whole thing. I'll be able to just see most of it. The Broncos against the Bears. Now, there's going to be maybe a heated exchange, with Cutler, and Brandon Marshall playing against the former team, even though it's a preseason game. I think it's going to be interesting to see, of course you're not going to show all of your coverages and schemes and stuff in a preseason game. It's just going to be the basics. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Cutler and Marshall, how they're going to work together. Because personally, I think they were a great duo in Denver, and I think they're going to do really well in Chicago. It's just a shame, though, that in that division you're going to have Green Bay and Detroit along with the Bears. So I just want to see how they're going to cohese again, because I think they're going to end up being pretty good this year. And as far as the Denver Broncos are concerned, everyone, of course, is thinking the same thing. How is Peyton Manning going to play? I think it's going to be good to see him at least play 1 to 2 series, just to see if he has the timing meshed down with the receivers, how he moves in the pocket. I mean, he never was a good pocket presence quarterback, but I have a feeling that he might be moving a little quicker, even though he's been out of the game for a year. Maybe he worked on that to surprise opponents, but I doubt that's the case. And then, of course, the other game is the Battle of Pennsylvania. You have the Steelers and the Eagles. And this is going to be really interesting. And, of course, on a sadder note, Garrett Reed, the son of Philadelphia Eagles head coach Andy Reid, passed away recently. But Andy Reid said he's still going to be out there on the sideline. I don't know how much of the game he's going to coach, but he will be out there for the team. And I send my condolences out to the Reid family. This is going to be the first time we see Todd Haley's offense in a game. And like I said before, they're not going to give everything away. I think it's just going to be a preview, of how he was saying he wants to involve the running backs more in the passing game. Heath Miller is going to be more of a target. I think it's going to be really interesting. And now with the offensive line, Tomlin said he's going to give the starts to David Castro and Mike Adams, the 2 rookies. And Willie Colon and Cameron Hayward will not be playing, as well as James Harrison and Jason Worlds. So that means Chris Carter, the 5th-round pick from last year, will be getting a start in this first preseason game. I think it's going to be interesting to see the offense and the defense as well, because you don't have Aaron Smith anymore. You don't have James Ferrier, and you don't have William Gay. So the position that I'm really keeping my eye on is cornerback, because you got Ike Taylor, who's definitely a solid number 1 corner. The question is, who's going to fill in at number 2? There's many options. You can choose Keenan Lewis, but I think he'd be a better nickelback. And then you also have Curtis Brown and Cortez Allen, the draft picks from last year. So I think that position battle is going to go a long way in these 4 preseason games. And also with the running backs, I don't know if Mendenhall, when he will be back in the regular season, if he'll be back at all this year. Redmond's definitely the starter. Question becomes, you have Jonathan Dwyer, John Clay, Chris Rainey, and Baron Batch. Baron Batch was a feel-good story of last preseason, but he did get injured. so he didn't get to play it all in the regular season. Chris Rainey, a lot of people are expecting, I guess, him to be an electric type player. Kind of maybe give him like what Darren Sproles has given the Saints, but of course Rainey is still far too young. He will primarily be returning punts and kickoffs in the preseason. So if he does well at that, I think he definitely guarantees himself a spot on the team, because I know they don't want to keep giving Antonio Brown like they did last year to kickoff returns, since he's now a primary receiver. Chris Rainey, I think, will be used effectively in screen passes and short passes, and then he can turn them into big gains. Question becomes, you have Dwyer and Clay, who I think are very similar. So I think the odd man out would be one of those two, because I think Baron Batch is going to be a little of a spark plug too, even though he's kind of small, kind of along the lines with Rainey. He does have a little bit more power. So I think between Dwyer and Clay, one of them is going to go, and ultimately I think right now, I mean, everything could change by the end of the preseason, but I think John Clay would be the odd man out, even though he had a couple good games with the Steelers last year at the end of the year. And another big question of mine is Big Ben. Will this apparent rotator cuff injury, I don't think it's going to affect him because he's had injuries in the past. But the offensive line has to be stable enough so that he does not get pounded like at least 10 times every game. I think with DeCastro there and Adams, even if he doesn't start, you have Max Starks there, that they're going to be solid enough to not let many sacks happen this year. I think this might be the first time in like 10 years that the Steelers will not allow like the top 5 sacks. I hope they give up less than 30, because that would be quite an accomplishment for this offensive line. The defensive line, I will be interested in to see too as well, because Casey Hampton, he's getting older now and he's coming off of surgery. I personally don't know if he's going to be able to last the whole year. So that means you're going to have Steve McClendon and then the draft pick, Te'amu, who will be competing probably to be the backup. I don't know, because Hampton's saying McClendon, he's got that position as a backup. He's got it nailed down pretty good. So I don't really know who's going to be in the defensive tackle spot there for the foreseeable future, because it could be 1-2, but they were comparing Te'amu to Hampton when the Steelers drafted him right out of the gate, so I think that'll be pretty interesting to see how that plays out. Now, as far as the receiving situation, wide receivers, Wallace still has not reported to camp. And a couple days ago, GM Kevin Colbert said that they're not open to trading Wallace. Players have been in contact with him. Ben has talked to him recently, but not like into the fine details. And he expects Wallace to be here eventually. So I hope he doesn't wait till like week 10 or week 11, because that'll probably hurt the team. But if for some reason they don't think he's going to be coming by the next week or so, by the second or third preseason game, I think the Steelers have to go sign a receiver. And the one receiver who is still out there that I think that they should get is Plaxico Burress. He's a former Steeler, and I know he's not the player that he once was, but he is still a tall, athletic receiver who will give you the occasional double team, because if he's single covered, I guarantee you he's going to catch the ball more than 60 or 70% of the time. I think, though, that the Steelers are hesitant because they still assume Wallace is going to get here. And they don't. I'm thinking that if they bring in a receiver, it's like, oh, I wonder if he's going to grasp Haley's offense quick enough. Burris is a veteran, and I think he'll do that. Because they got Brown, Sanders, Cotchery, and then the rest are rookies. So I definitely think they need to bring in another receiver just so they can have at least 4 solid players with at least more than 2 or 3 years of experience. So as for tonight, it's kind of hard to predict preseason games because you never know what's going to happen. But just for the heck of it, I mean, I'll predict the Steelers end up winning the game 23-17. That's my prediction. So we'll be talking more about that game and other news about the Steelers in next week's show. But that's going to be the end of part 1. It's kind of a little short on part 1 today, but after that, come back, part 2. Of course, we're going to get into some Bucko baseball.